My name is Russell Lawson, but everyone calls me Russ. I am 50 years old, and until last year I thought I had it all figured out. A solid marriage to Ivonne, two grown kids making their way in the world, and a business that practically ran itself. Four premium car wash locations across the county, pulling in about 15 grand a month in passive income while my managers handle the daily operations. I would wake up, check the numbers on my phone, maybe drive by one of the locations if I felt like it, and spend the rest of my time working on the house or planning our next vacation. Ivonne worked as a real estate agent, and she was good at it too. Always closing deals, always networking at some event or another. I was proud of her hustle. She would come home late smelling like wine and appetizers from open houses, and I would ask how her day went. She would kiss my cheek and say exhausting before heading upstairs to shower. I never questioned it. Why would I? It was a Tuesday morning in March when I found the note. Not even a real conversation. Just a piece of paper on the kitchen counter next to the coffee maker. I still remember the exact words because they burned themselves into my brain. I need to find myself again. Do not wait for me. I am sorry. That was it. No phone call, no tearful explanation, no attempt to work things out. Just those words and a half-hearted apology. Her car was gone from the driveway, half her closet was empty, and our joint savings account was lighter by $80,000. I stood there in my bathrobe holding that note and felt like someone had pulled the ground out from under me. The first few weeks were the hardest. I called her phone maybe 100 times. Every call went straight to voicemail. I drove past her office, but her colleague said she had taken an indefinite leave of absence. Our kids Owen and Piper knew something I did not. I could tell by the way they avoided my eyes when I asked if they had heard from their mother. Owen especially got defensive real quick. She's going through something, Dad, just give her space. Like I was the problem. Like I was suffocating her by existing. I learned later, much later, that they had been sending her money helping fund whatever midlife crisis she was living out, while I was back home trying to hold the family together. 3 months after Ivonne left, I stopped counting the days. I stopped checking my phone every 5 minutes, hopping for a text that never came. I started living again, or at least going through the motions. That is when I noticed Thea. She had moved into the rental house across the street sometime in late May. One morning I was out front watering the flower beds that Ivonne used to maintain, and I saw this woman in scrubs getting out of a beat-up Honda Civic. She looked exhausted, the kind of tired that settles into your bones after a long night shift. Dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, coffee cup in one hand, keys in the other. She glanced over and gave me a small wave. I nodded back, not really in the mood for conversation. Thea Kimball, I learned her name was. She worked as an ICU nurse at County Memorial, pulling 12-hour shifts that rotated between days and nights. She was 35, never married, and living alone in a house that was too big for one person, kind of like me. We did not talk much at first, just the occasional wave when we crossed paths. Then one Saturday morning I was in my driveway changing the oil in my truck when she walked over carrying a plate covered in foil. "You look like you could use some homemade cookies," she said, her voice warm but not pushy. She set the plate on my workbench. Chocolate chip. Fair warning, they are a little burnt on the bottom. I wiped my hands on a rag and looked at her. She was not trying to flirt or pry into my business. She was just being neighborly. Something about that simple gesture hit me harder than I expected. "Thanks," I said, my voice rougher than intended. "I am Russ." "I know," she replied with a slight smile. "I have seen your name on the mailbox." "I am Thea." Wednesday morning came around and I found myself walking across the street to her house with no real plan. Just a vague invitation and the realization that I had spent too many mornings alone with my thoughts. The coffee she made was strong enough to strip paint served in mismatched mugs she picked up from thrift stores. "So what is your story, Russ?" Thea asked, settling into a worn armchair across from me. Direct, no dancing around it. I appreciated that. "My wife left almost 4 months ago," I said, the words coming easier than I expected. Note on the counter, half the savings gone. No explanation. Just decided she needed to find herself. Thea nodded slowly, her expression neutral. "That is rough. You hear from her at all?" "Not a word. Our kids seem to know more than they are telling me, but they are keeping her secrets." That is when Thea said something that surprised me. "My dad died last year. Cancer. I was his nurse toward the end." "And your brother Russell," she continued, her voice careful. "He was one of my patients 3 years ago. Different hospital, different unit, but I remember him. You visited every day during his final week." The air in the room shifted. I stared at her, pieces clicking into place. "You knew who I was when you moved in." "I recognized you," "Yeah," Thea admitted, "but I did not bring it up because I was not sure if you would remember me." "Why tell me now?" "Because you deserve honesty," she said simply. "And because I do not want to build a friendship on something left unsaid." It became routine without us planning it that way. She would work her night shifts and I would show up Wednesday mornings with pastries from the bakery downtown. We would sit on her back porch and talk about everything and nothing. One evening in late July, I was replacing rotted boards on her back deck when she came outside with 2 beers. "Can I ask you something personal?" she said. Are you doing all this because you are trying to move on or because you are still waiting for her to come back? I stopped working and looked at her directly. 2 months ago, I would have said I was waiting. Now I do not know, I am just trying to figure out what comes next. That night after I went home, I stood in my bedroom and stared at the photos on the dresser. Me and Ivonne on our wedding day, young and stupid and sure we had figured it all out. I took that photo and put it in a drawer, not out of anger, just acceptance. Some chapters end whether you are ready or not. It happened on a Tuesday night in late September, almost exactly 1 year after Ivonne had walked out. I was in the garage organizing tools. Thea was inside making dinner because she had insisted I needed to eat something besides sandwiches and takeout. We had grown comfortable with each other over the past few months, comfortable enough that she had a toothbrush in my bathroom and I had a key to her place. Nothing official, no labels, just two people who had found something worth holding onto. My phone buzzed on the workbench. Unknown number, but the message preview made my stomach drop. I have had my fun. Now I am ready to be a wife again. Can we talk? No greeting, no apology, just that, like she had been on vacation and was ready to come home now that the weather had turned cold. A full year of silence, and this was what she chose to say. Thea appeared in the garage doorway. Dinner is almost ready. You coming in? I handed her the phone without a word. She read the message, her expression shifting from curious to understanding to something harder. Are you going to respond? Thea asked, her voice carefully neutral. No, I said, the word coming out more certain than I felt. There's nothing to say to that. Over the next 3 days, more messages came through, each one more desperate, more manipulative than the last. I made a mistake, please. I was lost, I did not know what I was doing. The kids miss having us together. That last one made my blood boil. The kids, like Owen, had not been sending her money behind my back. Like Piper had not known exactly where her mother was this entire time while I worried and grieved and rebuilt my life from nothing. I did not respond to any of them. Instead, I did something I should have done months ago. I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, but one who specialized in divorce cases where one party had abandoned the marriage and stolen marital assets. My attorney, a sharp woman named Barbara Chun, laid it out plainly. If your wife wants to reconcile, she's going to have to do it through legal channels now. And given what you have told me, I would recommend we start gathering evidence of any extramarital affairs. That will strengthen your position considerably. I signed a retainer agreement that afternoon. Not out of revenge, but protection. Thea was starting to matter to me in ways that scared me, and I needed to make sure Ivonne could not blow up what we were building. The knock came early on a Saturday morning 2 weeks after that first text message. I was in the kitchen making coffee. Thea was upstairs taking a shower. We had spent the night before going through old boxes in my attic, sorting what to keep and what to finally throw away. The knocking was insistent, demanding. I knew who it was before I even looked through the window. Ivonne stood on my front porch looking like she had stepped out of a magazine. Hair perfect, makeup flawless, wearing an outfit that probably cost more than most people monthly rent. She looked tan, rested, like she had spent the past year at a spa instead of destroying a marriage. I did not open the door right away. I just stood there looking at this woman I had spent 26 years with and felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no longing, no curiosity about where she had been. Just a cold, empty space where those feelings used to live. The shower upstairs shut off. I heard Thea moving around in the bedroom. Ivonne knocked again, harder this time. Russell, I know you are in there. I can see your truck in the driveway. Please just talk to me. I walked to the door but did not open it. You need to leave, Ivonne. There is nothing to talk about. I made a mistake, she called through the door, her voice taking on that pleading tone she used when she wanted something. I was confused. I needed time to figure things out, but I am ready now. I want to come home. This is not your home anymore, I said, my voice flat. You left. You took $80,000 and disappeared for a year without a word. You do not get to just come back because you are ready now. That is when I heard footsteps on the stairs behind me. Thea appeared at the top of the landing wearing one of my old shirts, her hair still damp from the shower. She paused when she saw me at the door, reading the situation instantly. Want me to answer it? Thea asked quietly. I stepped back. Yeah, I think that would be perfect. Thea walked to the door and opened it before I could second-guess the decision. Ivonne's carefully constructed expression shattered the moment she saw who was standing in my doorway in my house wearing my clothes. Her eyes went from Thea's face down to her stomach, which was just starting to show a gentle curve at 5 months along. We found out about the pregnancy 3 weeks ago, right around the time Ivonne had started sending those desperate text messages. Ivonne's face went ghost white. All the color drained out of it like someone had pulled a plug. Her mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Can I help you? Thea asked, her voice polite but firm. Not hostile, not smug, just present and unshakable. Who are you? Ivonne finally managed, her voice barely above a whisper. I am Thea, she replied simply. And you need to leave. Russell made it clear he does not want to talk to you. Ivonne looked past Thea, trying to make eye contact with me, but I had already turned away. I walked into the kitchen and poured myself a cup of coffee, listening as Thea calmly closed the door and locked it. Through the window, I watched Ivonne stand on the porch for a long moment, her perfect composure completely demolished. Then she turned and walked back to her car, her steps unsteady like she could not quite believe what had just happened. Owen showed up 2 days later, and he did not come alone. His wife Melissa was with him, and I could tell from the set of her jaw that she was the one pulling the strings. "We need to talk, Dad," Owen said, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. "About you replacing Mom like she never existed. About you moving some stranger into her house and getting her pregnant." "First of all, this is my house," I said, keeping my voice level. "Your mother walked out on it over a year ago. Second, Thea is not a stranger, and she's not replacing anyone. She's building something new with me, something your mother chose to destroy." "She made a mistake," Melissa interjected. "People make mistakes." "Your mother did not make a mistake," I corrected, looking directly at Owen. "She made a choice. She chose to leave, chose to take $80,000, chose to disappear for a year without a word." "Those are not mistakes, son. Those are decisions." 3 weeks after Owen's hostile visit, it was Piper who reached out, not with accusations but with a simple text. "Can we meet for coffee, just the two of us?" She was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth looking nervous and guilty. "I am so sorry, Dad," she said. "I should have stood up for you when Owen was being awful. Mom called me right after she saw Thea at the house. She was hysterical, saying you betrayed her. And I just listened and did not say what I should have said, which is that she has no right to be upset. She left you, Dad. She walked out without a word and disappeared for over a year. What did she think was going to happen?" "Last week," Piper continued, "I heard Mom on the phone with her friend Janet. She was laughing about you, Dad, calling you predictable and boring. She said you were a reliable paycheck, but that she needed excitement, needed to feel young again. And when Janet asked why she wanted to come back, now Mom said because stability looks better when you are broke and alone." The divorce hearing was scheduled for a cold morning in February. My attorney Barbara had prepared me for what to expect, but nothing really prepares you for sitting across a courtroom from someone you spent half your life with. The judge, a no-nonsense woman named Margaret Hale, reviewed the case file. "This appears to be a straightforward abandonment case. Mrs. Lawson, you left the marital home and had no contact with your husband for 12 months. Your Honor, my client is entitled to half of the marital assets," Ivonne's lawyer interjected. Barbara stood smoothly. "Your Honor, we have evidence that Mrs. Lawson withdrew $80,000 from joint accounts without consent before abandoning the marriage. We also have documented evidence of multiple extramarital affairs over the past 3 years, including a year-long relationship with a man named Trevor Hastings." The judge reviewed the documents. "Mrs. Lawson, is this information accurate?" Ivonne looked at her lawyer, then at me, then down at her hands. "I made mistakes." "These are not mistakes, Mrs. Lawson. These are deliberate choices. I am granting the divorce on grounds of abandonment and adultery. Mr. Lawson, you will retain full ownership of your business assets and primary residence. Our daughter Emma Grace Lawson was born on a Tuesday morning in late March, 7 pounds 3 ounces, with a full head of dark hair and her mother's eyes. I held her in the hospital room while Thea slept and felt something click into place. This was what family was supposed to feel like. Not obligation or tradition, but real connection, real love, real choice. 10 months after the divorce, I ran into Ivonne at a grocery store. She looked older, smaller somehow. "She's beautiful," she said, looking at Emma in the carrier strapped to my chest. "I heard you and Thea got married. Congratulations." "We did," I replied, keeping it simple. "I need to get going. Take care of yourself, Ivonne." I walked away without looking back. There was no anger anymore, no bitterness, just indifference. She was someone I used to know, and that was all she would ever be again. That evening, I sat on the back porch with Thea while Emma slept in her bassinet between us. "What are you thinking about?" Thea asked. "How everything had to fall apart so it could come together right," I said. "If Ivonne had not left, I never would have found you. Never would have had Emma. Never would have realized I was settling for being someone's reliable option instead of someone's first choice." "You are my first choice," Thea said firmly. "Every single day, and you are mine," I replied. "Sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is the worst thing because it forces you to rebuild into something stronger than you were before."